Hello everyone, welcome back. Today in TS7 Human Resource Development, we are going to look at methods of recruitment, selection and test. Oh yes, we need to have the whole process, isn't it? Because we need to know we're getting the right person for us to work with us and we are able to justify response to our job roles, to the organization and to ourselves. Let's move on and look at the learning objectives for the day. So first thing, we're looking at different methods of recruitment, which is direct, indirect and third party. We also will look at selection. We'll also look at initial screening into the recruitment methods, and we also look at application scrutiny, what happens and how do we segregate applications when so many people apply. And lastly, today in this session, we'll look at selection test. That means, how do we select? What are different tests used for selecting a candidate? Okay, let's move on. So, as I said that there are three methods: direct, indirect and third party. So, in the direct method, what we look at it, that method mostly used by hotels, travel agencies. So, I still remember I was once in charge for training. Is called TPC, Training and Placement Coordinator. I used to liaise with how many hotels, small and big. Even sometimes we had the supermarkets come and approach me so that they can have our students, sometimes as a trainee and sometimes for the on the job. So what happens is that these organizations, they send recruiters to their education and professional institutions. Yes, for hospitality, they used to send to hotel management colleges. There's so many airline colleges, hotel management colleges, and these are the places where recruiters can get the first-hand students who are just fresh coming out of the college. So this is called campus interviews, and it can also be for apprenticeship. Now, the hotels, they need to actually maintain those lists so that they know which institutions, how many students came, how many stayed, how many dropped off and whatnot. And then based on their previous experiences, they actually send them brochures, new attractive, you can say, schemes that maybe we are going to give this much of incentives, or we're going to give us a stipend or whatnot. And then obviously there are programs called management trainee programs, apprenticeship programs, or even direct recruitment. Now I still remember I was selected for a management trainee for Hotel Sun and Sand in Mumbai long back. Now what happens, there is another program called apprenticeship, where education is maybe just once a week, but it's more of hands-on. That again comes as a part of a recruitment method. So that was a direct method. Now, hotels also have to make sure they liaise with the placements officers. I was telling you that I was a training and placement officer. So what my job role was that I actually used to contact them. Hey, how many students I have, what is that we're looking at, this is the dates that we are open, we can arrange campus interviews based on so and so, and we have this much of space and facilities for you to come over. And at times I still remember we used to even give them accommodation to come and stay because we had a hotel in our campus. So they used to stay in our accommodation, and food and beverage was done by our students. So then the interaction starting from there only. So the reception, there were our students in the hotel. So they were having first-hand information, seeing how students are maintaining that. And then the food and beverage, again, they'll see the service as well as the taste and the flavors and all this food. Plus, when they come over here, they will facilitate it by other students. So what's happening? So actually, it's the job of a training placement officer to actually liaise between students, management, as well as the hotel professionals or human resource people who come for the interviews. So that's how the whole process goes. So that's actually a direct method. Okay. Now, there's another method where, like say, the organization itself, other than the colleges, what they do is they really encourage their employees. Employees are actually a bigger marketing tool because they know the organization very well, and they can let others know about the organization. They can let others know the good qualities of the organization, how things work, and they are the one who can really encourage or influence others to join your organization. Now, they would interact with friends, relatives, acquaintances, and well, who doesn't need a job? So in saying so, employees, these are another source of employment for you, the organization. So how do they do? There's something called a refer a friend. I still remember, rather in my last job, I referred 2 people, and for every person who stayed there for 6 months, I used to get $500 to $1,000 depending on the position they are. I'm earning money, isn't it? And at the same time, organization is getting good person, because I know where I work, I won't be actually putting anyone who's not really good enough for that position in job, because I'm still at that place, and why should I put my name at stake, isn't it? So these are the common methods used in small hotels, restaurant, travel agencies, and hospitality and tourism. Now, this was the second method, which is employee contact with public. So let's look at the third method, which is manned exhibit and waiting list. Now, before I go to this, I must let you know that when I was actually looking for a job, when I changed from one country to another country, I put an application for 200 jobs. Yes, I'm right, for around 200 jobs. And most of them was turned down, and they said, sorry, you're overqualified, sorry this, sorry that. So I did not really get through many jobs. And then I was like, why, what's happening? So, well, one thing which I did not realize, that my overqualification was becoming an issue. It was in the way, which I should have realized in the first place. But anyways, no, I realized when I look back. So please make sure that you are the best fit for the organization. Regardless, you may have highest qualification, but you may not be the best fit, because we do not need someone who's not the best fit, because he may not stay for longer and he may leave the organization for the next and higher role. So coming to this manned exhibit and waiting list, hotels, what they do is they actually make sure that they participate in exhibitions, in conventions, seminars, job fairs, mobile offices. Why? What are these things? When they go in the exhibitions, there's a lot number of people who are professionals who come over there. In conventions and seminars, when they go over there, they interact with people and they look prospective people. At some point of time, they also used to be called as headhunters. Usually terminology used by most of the private recruiting agencies, they're called by headhunters. LinkedIn, sometimes I'll get offers from different places. Are you looking for that? Are you looking for that? Because they actually are scanning LinkedIn profiles, and they put those, and they put a scan, and then they come forth, those profiles come in place. They also go in a job fairs, and a job fair is a place where so many people are looking forward to it. Students, people who are looking for work, people who are retired, people who really want to join, like mothers who were having kids and now they want to come back to the workforce, maybe a disability people, and they're back and they want to recovered and they want to go back. So all those people, they are actually at the time of job fairs as a good opportunity. Now, I was explaining you about how I was turned down for nearly 200 applications when I moved the country. But the good part was that my resume was kept for some time, and quite a fair bit of time. I still remember I also applied for one of the banks over there, and then after 3 years or 4 years, I had a job and everything. So there was a good opportunity in the same bank, and I applied for the bank, and they said, hey, our records show that you have applied for this in this position, please log in with your details. So they had my details even after 3 years. So what I want to put a point over here, there's something called waiting list. So even if I don't get through this time into the job, the organization, they still keep those resumes on the record, because next time when they need someone, they actually go through a record and see if there's someone who was interested and is worth giving a try. And that's where they do not really go and apply, publish those ads. They reach out to you to see if you're available. Okay, now then these were the direct methods. Let's look at the indirect methods. As the name says, indirect, which is newspaper advertising. Now in this advertising, you are just putting in open. Anyone can apply or no one can apply. Then we have electronic media. Well, in today's world, who can tell me better than you about electronic media, isn't it? So you have which one? Come on, think about it. Which is electronic media? Your electronic media comes into, as I was saying, is a LinkedIn. You have what's called Indeed.com or different organizations that they are doing recruitment agencies. They are online. We put on that, and I do in Seek.com in Australia. We do that. We have Indeed, so on and so forth. Now these are the places where all the organization, they put their, it's like a one-stop shop. Not one, they're more than one, but then yes, a lot of information. So you get, what you can do is you can actually register yourself and you get new ads and you get actually messages. Then we have trade and professional journals. Okay, hotelier, they actually have their journals coming, the magazines coming up. You can put it over there. And usually this trade and professional journal, these ads are mostly for the higher end positions, but not necessarily. And similarly, technical journals and brochures are also another part where they're indirect, because that means you're not directly asking anyone or you're not directly going to anyone. It's just an open journal that you send this and then they apply based on the instructions. Now it's very important that when it is indirect method, it is quite open and people may make mistakes. That means your indirect methods must be very, very specific. We'll come to that later. Now, so these are the specific things I was saying that you must follow to avoid unqualified candidates from applying. So yes, if you do not give the right information, if you leave some gaps people to think in different directions, they will apply. So your advertisement must be planned exactly what needs to go, when it needs to go, which newspaper, which section, which column, and how many words, how big, how small, all those things makes a difference. It must be to the points, because what are the requirements? So it's like key selection criteria. What is key selection criteria? What is essential? What is desirable? Those things must be clearly written over there, because that gives a clear indication. Yes, it's desirable. No, it's essential. So when it is essential, I don't have the qualification, I shall not apply. But if you do not write those things, you'll get a lot of information, a lot of applicants, but you don't need them, right? So that way everyone can be easily verify or check this or assess their suitability and abilities. And sometimes they have also given a phone number. They also give phone number sometimes a person. If you have any doubts and ambiguity, you verify that before even you apply. And I would highly recommend, if there's a phone number given, please give them a call. Show your interest. Ask questions and valid questions with regards to job role. And you have higher proximity. Okay. Now, next part is third party methods. Now, I think we have done direct, we have done indirect. Now let's move on to the next one, which is third party. So which is various agencies, private and commercial agencies and employment agencies. And I still remember when I was in my young age, we used to have employment exchange. So those employment exchanges actually also are a place which is third party. So what do they do? The recruitment firms and consultancy agencies, what they do? They actually keep, as I was saying, at headhunting. They actually have a database. They will approach you. Sometimes you register with them, and sometimes they approach you, depending who needs more, right? Because they get money, and this is their business, right? And in those, it must be clearly specified what qualifications are required or are essential, and if any professional association is required, if the Nursing Association of Australia is required, or I would say that for tour and travel agency any registration is required, okay, and or any languages are required. Now, it also happens that sometimes there are a short-term requirement. So in hospitality and tourism, as we know, we are seasonal. Sometimes we are looking for a ski resort which winters only for a few months in a year, right? And we will still need someone to be there. In that case, we can get hold of local guides or tourist guides, or just to fulfill our seasonal requirements. They are also third-party methods. So in overall, we realize the different methods that we choose, but while using those methods, what do? We move on to selection. Now, how do we select a candidate? We have gone through the whole process where we have started from expression of interest, planning the job role, framing it, job duties, responsibilities, profiles, all those things have been done. Now we've reached a stage where candidates applied, and now you're going to do the matching of the skills. Obviously, we are going to do a justice to the job and a candidate by putting the right candidate for the right job role, because if that's not the best thing done, then it's no justice neither to the job or not to the candidate. Okay, so what involves in this process of a selection is it's a process of selection and rejection, isn't it? Because as I was explaining that I was rejected, I put more than 200 applications, I was rejected most of them. So what's happening? Because I was not, maybe I was less suitable, or maybe I was unsuitable for that role. As I said, you were overqualified for that position. Now, in this process, there are some hurdles that come in the way. So the first thing is preliminary interview. Now, what is a preliminary interview? I think I explained this process earlier, but I'll explain it again. Before even you have an interview, as soon as you apply, so you have to respond to selection criteria. Well, they want to know before they actually come back to you that if you're fulfilling the criteria or not. So you have to actually put a cover letter in response to selection criteria. And in selection criteria, there are maybe 4, 5 or 6 requirements. Some would be essential and some would be desirable. So you have to respond to all of them. When you respond to them, I will just give you one extra thing in there. When you respond to selection criteria, so always remember SEO. Situation, not EA, action and outcome. What was the situation? Let's say selection criteria says decision making power or decision making. Situation, I was working in a restaurant where one of the waiters had a fall and the soup fell onto the table of a client or a customer. That is a situation. Action, I immediately called busboy and other waiter to clear the table and assist the customer, help the waiter and make sure everyone was safe. Outcome, customers were provided free food for that, an apology letter. The waiter was given first aid and situation was managed. What happened? I actually let them know what was the situation and then what actions did I take and what was the outcome. So this is SEO. Similarly, you have to fulfill all those criteria. Once you have done that, then the next thing is an application form. It's a huge form, and they send it through to you, and then you fill the form up, you send the form. Usually it's all online nowadays, and then you go for an interview, which maybe nowadays not face to face, usually it's a virtual one nowadays, but still you could be, and then will be testing. So this is the process in terms of recruitment, right? Now, when I say about hurdles, so what exactly we're looking at? We're looking at a process where we are trying to eliminate any issues. So in the desirable candidate, we're looking at the suitability in the history, work references, people who you worked with, and they can say, yes, this student is okay, or this person is okay for the work. LinkedIn is a very good source for that matter. Physical examination, maybe you go and sit, talk to them physically. And then any recommendation, any chefs, anyone has recommended for you. And last is interview with the supervisor. So that's another stage that comes in the process. So have a look at this whole graph in application employment is given. So see at the rejections. So if at every stage there's a rejection, at the preliminary interview, at the application form, second interview, testing, work history, reference, anyone who gets a job on the right hand side has to actually make sure it's not rejected on all those points, and when they're not rejected any of those, that means we are very close to the desirable candidate that we really need. So these are also called selection hurdles. Now, once we do that, we'll go through this process a little bit more in detail. Initial screening or preliminary interviews. Obviously, we're looking at, we give the information to the candidates, and obviously the candidates, they fill the form, they are telling us about how they best suit and match the job through the education, through the experience, skills, and also sometimes they ask for the salary expected, but mostly the salaries are nowadays printed, and if person is moving ahead with this same salary, that means they're already understanding, accepting that. But what happens is when these all selection criteria are fulfilled, and when a candidate is found suitable, he is selected for the process and moves on. If not, obviously the candidate moves on. Now, in the initial screening process, there is nowadays the process goes that they also ask you for a short video or a voice recording that why should we select you, why you are the most suitable candidate. So always remember, it is not necessary to just go through in a hurry. No, it's a job role with the patience, and you have to really understand the person who's applying and investing the time and money to actually work for you. So there are a few qualities that we look at the person who is from human resource or people and culture or interviewer. Must be courteous. He must be kind and receptive, because the person who's coming for the interview may be a bit nervous. Not necessarily you have to be very, very formal. You could be some informal and make the person relax, serve them a glass of water, let them be relaxed and calm, and then they go for the interview. And obviously, once we reach the stage that the candidate has already crossed those hurdles and we see, then we give them form further. But again, those applications will be maybe more than the position required. So then the applications actually are scrutinized. That applications usually are in a systematic format, but could be, in a very rare case, could be on a plain piece of paper. Now, one more thing is age, marital status, education qualification, work experience, references. These are few of the information that we're looking at. But having said that, the forms that we are given to those candidates must be very, very simple, easy and answerable, because sometimes they need a lot of explanation, and when you need a lot of explanation, that's where there's a phone number for a person to be contacted to get those complexities solved. Now, there are the few aspects which are covered under discrimination attitude, such as nationality, race, caste, religion, and place of birth. Make sure you try to avoid these things when you are seeking information from the candidate. Now, obviously, the screening is the first and most critical part, and those must be put very clearly so that when you put your advertisement, these things are very clear so that your screening job becomes very easier. Now, so the information could be found in the way that the candidate who is applying for the job has high proximity. That means candidate gives you information which actually gives you ticks all the boxes, and which is actually a starting point for you to understand the candidate and they understand the organization. Now, what happens is, if your candidate is good enough but does not have the qualification, so sometimes there are requirements that you need to have those qualifications. And I was giving an example that last month I had an interview, and they called me for an interview, and they said that was internal interview. They asked me for the position, and I was fitting all the boxes, but I did not have the qualification. When they asked me, I said, no, I don't have the qualification. They had to put me down, so I did not get the job role. Now, there are selection tests. So what happens in this selection test? We look at the individual behavior of the person. It's a systematic questions that we ask them. So what happened? So when we give them selection test, it could be a trade test, it could be any test. So what happens in those tests? First of all, we need to know where this person stands in terms of skills and knowledge. And obviously, every person is different, isn't it? The abilities are different and they can express in a different way. And a skill test may be one more step forward to make sure we are understanding our client better. So what is the purpose and what are the benefits of those tests? So obviously, sometimes we guess those things. So these tests eliminate those options of prejudice, or maybe he's the one, he's my favorite, he's not my favorite, I don't like him, whatnot. Or sometimes these qualifications, there are some extra stuff they have done which comes in those tests, and this comes in handy. This is called transferable skills. Okay, and then sometimes there are a few things which we don't cover in our first stage of interview. Or maybe a person has done a job not that great in the subject or in the exams, but they have learned the skills hands-on. So let's conclude this topic over here by saying, what did we learn today? In this session today, we understood the methods of recruitment, which are direct, indirect, and third party, which includes your agencies. We looked at selection, that how do we select a candidate and what are the hurdles. We looked at initial screening. How do we do the initial screening? Through video recording or how? We also looked at the application scrutiny, that we scrutinize those applications based on some test. We're not in a hurry. And also we understood that there are tests which are for selection tests, which help us to understand that not necessarily that everything is covered in the interview. So we go for another set of questions, which is selection test. With this, I would like to thank you and hope you had a good day. Thank you.